All right, Mike Weary, welcome to the podcast today. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you for showing up. So, we have a mutual interest, and that is the Arts Council of Greater Baton Rouge.
Yes.
As I was looking over your website today, I saw that you were the artist in residence at the Arts Council. So my first question to you is, what exactly is an artist in residence, and what do you do?
So traditionally, an artist in residence is an artist in the community that essentially trades his skills for studio space. You'll traditionally see an artist using a gallery space or parts of a gallery space where they can create there and do their craft, but then in return they may curate the gallery or they may work in the gallery, maintenance or whatever it is, but it's essentially giving the artist an opportunity to utilize an art space without having to pay like a full rent. Mm-hmm. So essentially that's what I'm doing over there. I'm in what we call the basement. It's not the actual
not a bad basement.
No, not a bad basement to be in. But it's me and two other residents right now. Awesome. And essentially, the way it began for me was I would come in, do my art, and basically just do community work with the Arts Council in exchange for rent. So I was charged a rent essentially, but it reduces the more work I did. And then over the past 5 years, essentially, almost 6 years now, wow. 6 years I've been working more and more with them. So artist in residence, but I also curate the gallery. Okay. They're the Shell Gallery.
So how would you describe your art? I was looking at it earlier on. It's very cool.
I call it Dorian Gothic, which to me is just something I put on it where it's essentially more of a macabre style portraits is what I really lean on. Obviously I kind of go a little bit outside of that from here and there, but it's really just more internal work of just working through some of my highs and lows in my life and my past and now contemporarily just what I see in the world and putting it through a lens that's not so much of trying to make it beautiful. I'm just trying to show the world almost as it is, and a lot of times showing where it can go if we don't change the way in the trajectory that we're on.
So is it fair, as I looked over your work, there's a lot of portraiture in there, right? Mm-hmm. There's faces, there's people. Why is that? What is it about faces and people that you find so engaging?
I don't know. It's something about the human gaze and being able to see the soul in someone through just their eyes. And you can tell a story, I find. It's almost like a haiku, right? Where it's very short, but you can compact a lot of emotion and a lot of feeling, and it almost forces you as the artist or the poet to create to make every single word have impact. So same thing with a portrait where it's a lot of times for me, it's just a straight on shot of my subject, but I try to give a lot more character in and around him. So their eyes, their eyewear, hats, their hairstyles, the clothing that they may have on, and even just what I may include into the portrait in the backgrounds. I use a lot of iron oxide, and copper to kind of give the subjects and sometimes the environments they're in kind of a weathered look, specifically because we're in Louisiana. Everything's all rusty and patinaed and coppered out. So it gives this feel of the portrait you're looking at could be, from 50 years ago, 100 years ago, or if you're really looking at the subject matter, it could be something that's now or potentially in the future. So I'm playing with time a little bit too, but I feel like with the portrait itself, it can tell all of those stories. And my job is to really just get the audience to sit and stare at what they're looking at for at least 15 to 20 seconds. And if I can do that, I've done my job. And
So you're in good company. So I don't consider myself to be an artist as such, but we're all creative, right? And I'm in a creative field. We make a lot of films and short films and videos and things. And there's something I get what you're saying about the human face. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like eyes are the gateway to their soul kind of thing. And if you just stare at a person, you can kind of get lost in it. So I find like art is, so art is an invitation to I don't know. Do you feel that you as an artist are saying something, and if so, like, do you feel that people hear that, or do they bring themselves to it, and how do people receive your work?
So for me, I think my primary job is to tell the most authentic story that I can tell for that particular piece. I try to write a lot before I create a piece. Most times I'm writing and jotting down different notes, for years sometimes. Sometimes it comes out as a painting. Sometimes it doesn't. But when it does, it's typically I've been thinking about it for a while. And my job as the artist is really to just, again, be my authentic self. And if I can get at least one person from the audience that may pass my work to stop and relate in some way, then that's the ultimate goal.
Right.
Yeah, I think any artist will tell you that, when they create something, whether it be a musician or, a visual artist or whatever it is, it's creating something and being able to pour your soul into something and then have someone else go, oh, I have that same exact feeling. And I think with the visual arts, for my work in particular, I always speak it from my own experiences as I was going to say young, but as a almost 40-year-old, black male in, southern Louisiana, and, traveling back and forth and seeing the different folks throughout the country and, a little bit throughout the world, and trying to give context to that and in a single image. And for me, I feel that it not only resonates obviously with my demographic of black men, but I think in general, I think I've been able to express myself in a very authentic way that people just recognize the humanity in. And I try not to be overly perfect. I try to just get it over with.
Yeah.
And I think there's a level of emotion that comes out, almost like jazz, right? Where you're not sitting with a piece for, a year trying to write a song. You're just in the moment. Yeah. And there's something about being in the moment. And even though you may have some of those years of experience kind of leading you to the moment to create something maybe a little bit more skilled, but that there is something about just blurting everything out onto the canvas at once. And those, strokes, when they're abrupt and, kind of chaotic in those senses, there's something that reaches people.
Yeah. So I've I used to be in the theater.
Oh yeah.
And I was on the performing end of it, and so I would encounter a lot of choreographers, and you can tell if they're searching for something in the creative process, or if they are inspired. Like some of the best, like everyone has a different process, but some of the most amazing stuff was created almost like in minutes. Oh. Like, do you find the same thing as?
Yeah, it's honestly, and another thing that kind of made me really stop what I call like noodling around, and just like, I still sit with pieces sometimes for a while, but it's never on purpose. It's usually because I just haven't had time to sit for 6 hours and paint something. But I don't know, I just feel like there are times where in the past where I would sit there and I would paint on something for like 2 months, when I was younger, and then no one would pay attention. But then it was like the ones that I just kind of done out of nowhere that I thought would be like just throwaways, I just had to get it out of my mind. Those would be the ones that people love. Like some of the ones that I don't like as much are the ones people love the most. And it's just, I don't know. That's why, you tell artists to just get it out of your mind, just create the thing. The hardest part is just starting it. The second hardest part is finishing it. And then after that, it's not yours anymore. It's the world's. And, I find that when you sometimes aren't really thinking about it, and again, you're just feeling it and you're just getting it out there, people resonate with that more.
All right. So I can hear it in your voice. Mm-hmm. I can hear, like, I'm sitting here wondering, like, do you consider your work to be a gift, or just you have to do it? Like, or is it a bit of both? Mm-hmm. What's your...
For most of my life, it's been I just had to do it. More of a compulsion of just you know, when I would be in school, you know, I'd barely be paying attention. I'd be drawing the whole time. But it kind of helped me listen more.
Yeah.
So taking notes, I could never really take good notes, but I would always listen really well. So when test time came, I would just do the thing, you know, and make decent grades. But, you know, it's become, as I've grown more and have encountered more people and gotten outside of my own bubble, I've realized that people have told me it's a gift more so. You know, there's always these oddities that come with the arts, right? When you're constantly creating, especially when you're creating portraits and you're dealing with people all the time. So you have these weird moments of, you know, like I was painting a portrait one time that was centered around like lynchings and more around like anti-lynching legislation that hadn't been passed at the time. And in the middle of creating that, you know, I ran into someone who saw that in the painting, and it was just like the original drawings of it. Didn't have any extra context. It was just literally the basic line work. And he pulled that entire story from it. He was like, it reminded him of one of his uncles from Shreveport that passed away in that way. And it was just eerie. So it's like, those are the times where I sometimes think, oh, maybe this is some type of a gift. Like, I don't know what I believe as far as, you know, clairvoyance and higher powers and things of that nature. But there is something about the arts that transcends just the skill of going through a process. And it's just like music. Like, you hear a song sometimes and it's just,
I feel you.
yeah, it takes on its own meaning.
It's kind of at its best form. It's a bit like awe.
Yeah, you, and a lot of times the artist doesn't know what they're doing. Like, I always think about Kendrick Lamar's "All Right," which was like the anthem for the Black Lives Matter protests during 2020. And that song, if you listen to the album that it was in, like, that song had nothing to do really with like movement or civil rights or anything like that. It was like, you know, but it so happened to fit the theme to where it took on a completely different meaning of its own.
Yeah, it does have that quality.
And it's just, you know, it's just so
You never know.
You never know. So you create, and the world kind of builds itself around it.
Well, where did you come from? So where were you born and where were you raised? And tell me a bit about where you came from.
I came from a small little town called New Orleans. New Orleans, Louisiana. Yeah, the Big Easy. Born and raised, you know, 9th Ward, 8th Ward, 7th Ward area, you know, which isn't too far apart. New Orleans is very small. So kind of that downtownish area, not too far from like the French Quarter, Elysian Fields, Franklin Avenue. I grew up, my mom was an artist, and watching her draw all the time. And she wasn't a full-time artist. She, you know, worked as a cashier, but she grew up as a illustrator, and she went to Anoka. Was she trained or? Yeah, she was trained in the sense of she, just like me, just did it all the time, and then went to Anoka, which is the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts. So pretty much all your big, you know, artists that come out of New Orleans, all of them essentially went to Anoka. Okay. Like, almost all of them. So she went there, learned that. All of my aunts went to Anoka for like, I had an aunt that went for performing arts, another aunt that went for, two aunts that went for music, sang with like No Limit and stuff like that. So I was just around it, and just being in New Orleans, you're just around the arts all the time. But from there, growing up in New Orleans after Katrina, my family moved to Houston. And that was craziness. That was my senior year in high school. So that whole year was just a blur. And it's just wild to think about it, you know, today, of just like the craziness that was Katrina. But
I remember it.
Yeah, it was something. And being in the thick of it, and you know, we evacuated, but we had family that stayed. So it was just a lot of unknowns. And you know, it sounds weird, but the cell phone technology wasn't what it was today. So like, you couldn't really contact anybody. So that was a whirlwind, but that was leading into college for me. So that was my senior year, led into college. I went to Xavier University. I thought I wanted to be a pharmacist. I did 1 year and I was like,
How long did that last?
This isn't fun at all. Of course, I was just looking for the fun stuff. I'm just like, they were like, oh, this pays a lot of money. I was like, cool. And I did that for a year. I was like, I don't care how much money this pays. I'm not doing this. And then I went into fashion merchandising at UL Lafayette. But as a broke college student, end up dropping out and just diving headfirst into art. And
So what was your first outlet for your art? What did you get into?
it was really just, I would say, like anger art. Like I was burning my artwork. I would create it and then I would have like a bonfire and like a party at our house. We were like the party house. And then I would just burn the art. I would just throw it into a bonfire. And then I would create, a friend of mine majored in design. So he would create clothing and I would essentially sell the clothing for him. So we would just work on, we called the clothing line Highly Inappropriate. So we would put like these crazy sayings on t-shirts. We would paint on jeans. He eventually went into like ball gowns and things of that nature. So I couldn't really get too crazy with it. Right. And so we kind of parted ways after that. And so I was just doing a lot of it on my own. That's kind of like my side hustle. You know, I had a lot of side hustles just trying to make money. I would write and ghostwrite for a lot of people in like school and like students that didn't necessarily want to write their own papers. So I'm not going to name any names, obviously.
How'd you get from t-shirts and that kind of stuff into this art that you're doing now, this painting that you do now?
I guess, again, I just never, honestly, it was my wife. I guess is the best way to put it.
Best influence.
Best influence, because I was just doing this
yeah.
And it was just something I did. I didn't think about making money from it. And doing the t-shirts and doing like painting on just different garments and things like that. Eventually my wife was like, you need to make money from this stuff. She's a CPA. Yeah. So that made sense. And I was like, oh, I guess. And that was well over a decade ago. Wow. We met 15 years ago. So like, almost 15 years ago, she was like, you should start actually trying to sell all this art that you have. So I was still painting on the side, like just doing things. I stopped burning it. So, you know, I had it off to the side. I had some of my old stuff. And then once the first person bought it a while back, then I actually started focusing on, I think the best thing I did early on was focus still on myself, because someone bought something that I created just out of my mind. So it wasn't me chasing a certain audience. It wasn't me, oh, I have to paint this specific thing that I probably don't want to paint in order to make money. I was just like, I'm just going to paint this thing. I'm going to paint these portraits. I'm going to paint what I feel inside, and hopefully people feel it. And fortunately for me, people felt it. And I ran into Renee Chatelain, who was the CEO of the Arts Council at the time, right after 2020. And she saw me just painting in the park. I think it was a festival or something going on. And I was just out there BSing around. I'm saying BS, and it was like a 6-foot painting I was painting for Knock Knock. But it was just, you know, I just wanted to give it to him. Yeah, I was in the park. And she was like, who are you? I was like, just introduce myself. And I paint upside down, so that always attracts people. Question. Yeah.
Why do you paint upside down?
I don't know. I think I have dyslexia and all kinds of other things, but it's a technique, you know, that you can do as an artist. You can turn it around and you can see it differently. But for me, I've always just saw it that way. And maybe I think it developed from like taking notes and just having to look like I'm doing one thing and creating something a different way. Drawing one way, but then wanting to draw a different perspective for other people. But I don't know, it just feels right, especially when you're...
So you draw upside down?
Yeah, I haven't drawn upside down in a while because I started doing weddings, and I get nervous. I actually, like, there was a time period between like 2015 and I would say 2019 where I wasn't doing that. And because I was self-conscious about it, because I thought people would think was weird. So, but yes, I do draw, paint upside down, and I do weddings.
It's freaking awesome.
Yeah, I didn't think anything of it.
Who's to say what the right way of doing it? I just think it's, you know.
Right, because for me, it's essentially just shapes and lines and the way light's hitting objects and whether you can turn this room upside down, light's still hitting it the same way.
Yeah.
Your light sources are still coming from the same sources. And I don't know, I feel like when it's right side up, I'm focusing too much on specific details, and you get to that noodling thing where you're sitting with something forever because you're trying to make it perfect. Whereas when it's upside down for me, I'm just doing what feels right, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And by painting what just feels right, it eventually, I guess, just comes out fine. And I think that's where the feeling really comes from. I'm not perfecting anything. I'm just looking at light and objects and spheres. And it also allows me to be more creative in certain parts, where if I'm painting an eye, you know, sometimes I'm painting the iris of the eye just like a little marble. And then I'm, you know, painting the sclera just like, you know, maybe like lava, because I'm playing with orange now. Mm. So I'm just creating these pools of just different things in my mind. And I know how the anatomy works in general. Right side up, upside down is still, to me, the same thing.
That's awesome.
And it just, I don't know, it becomes a thing. I always forget about that part, that I paint upside down, because it's never.
Right, it's on your website.
Yeah, it's on my website. My wife told me that people like that. I was like, oh yeah, me. I have to always remind myself. And at weddings, it's always a hit for people, you know.
Right. So, future. Mm-hmm. What's do you have a plan, or are you just kind of letting it go where it's going to go?
My future right now is specifically focusing on the gallery. There are at least 3 or 4 shows that I want to continue on a yearly basis at the Shell Gallery. Personal artwork. I've been sending my art to Chicago now. It's one of my favorite cities. There's a gallery out there that represents some of my work, Gallery Guichard. So immediate future is really just continuing doing what I'm doing. I'm probably not going to do weddings as much in the future, so that might be a bummer for some people. But, you know, I really want to focus more on just some personal things that I have to really get out of my mind. And I need more time to do that, whether it be through just painting or finding other artists to also tell those stories through the gallery. I have a show that's still going on now at LASM, Louisiana Art and Science Museum, downtown Baton Rouge. That's going to be up until May 17th, so there's another month of that. Oh. I'm doing a workshop, not this weekend, but the next weekend. We're going to be painting upside down. Cool. And I'm going to be teaching a class full of folks for their studio Saturday. So immediate is just basically gallery painting work and just focusing on what's in the noggin up here.
Well, don't be surprised if we bump into each other next time I'm down at the gallery. No, I think it'd be fantastic to see you.
Oh yeah, come down anytime. I'm always there. I'm always running around downtown.
Well, it's been great to meet you. I really wish you all the best.
Thank you. I wish you the best too.